It's the weekly show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks to Meg Fowler, director of the History Museum of Mobile. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience, to the weekly show. I am your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally our studio audience because we do not have an audience today. We do not even have a studio today. In fact, this is a green screen. Marty, can you show it to green screen? Can you also now put me at the Academy Awards? The reason why I say that is because I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to win 2 Nappy Awards from Lanyap Magazine, one for Best Local TV Ad for our commercial The Godfather of Personal Injury, as well as Best Personal Injury Attorney. Normally, they would have award shows at the Sanger Theater, but because of coronavirus, they didn't this year. Instead, we did acceptance videos and we sent them in. In case you missed it, here are mine. Well, Best Local TV Ad. First, I'd like to thank the Academy. You know, when I first came up with the idea for The Godfather of Personal Injury, you're going to play me off now? Really? Really? This isn't real. It's a green screen. I freaking live here. Wow, Best Personal Injury Lawyer. David J. Maloney here. Thank you so much for voting for me. All the finalists in this category are great lawyers and great people, so I was in very special company. I'm going to do my best to live up to the confidence all the voters have placed in me. Thank you so much. So let's get back with the show. So in Williamsburg, Kentucky, the Ark Encounter Museum and Theme Park has just reopened with new coronavirus safety measures. In fact, they say there's now a limit to just 2 of every kind of animal. And in Columbus, Ohio, a man is wanted for robbing a donut shop. Of course, police are considering it a hate crime. Recent polls show Kanye West has 0% support among likely voters, but he says he's confident that before time, that number should double. And Dancing with the Stars has canned host Tom Bergeron as well as co-host Erin Andrews, and it looks like their careers are close to being finished. They're so close to being finished that they may be invited to compete on Dancing with the Stars. And did you hear this? LA Clippers guard Lou Williams, who was excused from the NBA bubble to attend a funeral, was caught at a local gentleman's club. Well, you know, experts do say that everyone mourns a little differently. And Tom Cruise's next film is set to be shot in outer space, or as Scientologists call it, the old country. Finally, if you are unaware, August is National Hair Loss Awareness Month. According to a new study, baldness increases a man's risk of prostate cancer. Unfortunately, doctors say my prostate can't be fooled by cutting off the top of my head on my commercials or my show or on billboards. So we have a great show for you tonight. In addition to my son Gianni being our musical talent on the show, we have Meg Fowler from the History Museum of Mobile after the break. We are going to be talking about some really cool and crazy and different stuff they have at the museum that you might not have known about that you can go see. As well as we're going to talk about how the area handled the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 and how that is very similar to how we're handling the virus right now. Anyway, stay tuned. We've got a great show for you tonight. We'll be right back. And we are back. We have Meg Fowler with the History Museum of Mobile with us. How are you doing, Meg?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came into this line of work.
So I'm the director of the History Museum of Mobile. It's the longest continuously operating museum in Mobile. I've been the director for about a year and a half, and it's just such a privilege to get to tell all the wonderful stories of Mobile.
And, you know, we just came off winning a couple of nappies, and you guys congratulations. You guys got a nappy win too, huh?
Well, thank you. Yes, best museum, second year in a row.
That's awesome. And now it's got to be an interesting job on a day-to-day basis to run a museum. I mean, what does that look like? What's the most challenging aspect of the job?
Well, there's always something different. It's very project oriented, which I love. There's the part that the public sees, and that's the exhibits. So we have a permanent collection, tens of thousands of square feet that you can come and see these exhibits. We have the temporary exhibits that come in from all over the world. That's the part that the public sees. But we also have the behind the scenes work. So a lot of education outreach, but also a collections department and a research department that take care of and preserve and research 117,000 objects that are in our collection.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
It is, and only about 1% of them are on display at any time. So 99% we're behind the scenes taking care of year round.
So what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of what you do?
Well, one thing we've really missed in the pandemic that we love are getting all the school children through. We've had, especially with really popular exhibits like the Ancient Rome exhibit that we have, we love getting just hundreds of school children a day sometimes through. But really just getting to tell these stories. One of the real privileges of what we do is to get to say whose story isn't being told, and what important story is out there that we could help tell. And so getting to really do that is definitely the best part.
Now, you mentioned the pandemic, and so let's start off by talking about past pandemics in Mobile, the most famous of which I think would be the Spanish flu of 1918. How did that flu strain get to the U.S.?
So it came, you know what? You've caught me. It's been a while since I've been in there. This is what I'll tell you. We in Mobile, I can tell you what it looks like in Mobile.
Okay.
And one of the really interesting, among these 117,000 objects, some of those are letters that are people writing about this and about other pandemics, other epidemics, and newspapers, all sorts of interesting sources. And what you find when you look at those sources is that it's really quite familiar. You have people canceling weddings or deciding to have really tiny weddings. You have, they didn't call it social distancing, but you have these recommendations to social distance. You have businesses doing curbside pickup. In 1918, you can get your milk bottle or your ice kind of curbside. All sorts of really kind of interesting things there. But you also see a really wide variety of medical advice. And just reading through the newspapers, it's so fascinating. In Mobile, it was worse. It was kind of the peak of it was October, November of 1918. And you can read, so scientists didn't understand at the time what a virus was. We knew what bacteria was, but we hadn't quite figured out what a virus was. And so there was all sorts of advice. Some of it is like, keep your feet warm, all sorts of things that remind us how far we've come and how really extraordinary it is to be in the 21st century and be so incredibly prepared, better equipped than anyone in history to deal with this. But then also some common sense advice. They talk a lot about don't spit on other people and don't cough on other people. So, common sense advice stands the test of time.
Which basically you're taught when you're 3, right? But still, we still have to tell people that when they're 30.
Exactly.
That's it's interesting that you say that, because I bet you at the same time there was probably, just like now you can look on social media and there's so many differing opinions as to what you should do, that there were probably also differing opinions and people arguing about what you should and shouldn't do during that pandemic too. No,
it's very true. And so at that time as well, you would have a newspaper that would come out usually twice a day, and you might even have multiple local papers. So you do get a lot of different voices coming in from all different sources. So I'll tell you though, one of the interesting things in a pandemic though, it was really yellow fever, a different epidemic that so profoundly shaped the history of Mobile. And the big question that people disagreed on there is what caused yellow fever. It took a really long time to figure that out.
What did they ultimately conclude on that?
So ultimately it's mosquitoes, right? And so, but it's hard to underestimate how much yellow fever shaped the history of Mobile. There were 11 major epidemics between 1819 and 1853, but really it was an annual thing. It was every summer when the mosquitoes would get bad. Of course, they didn't understand that was why. They thought it was maybe the heat or the smelly air, all sorts of theories about it. But yellow fever is a nasty disease too. It's called yellow because of the jaundice people would get. You could be dead within 6 days. But really profoundly shaped kind of even the geography of Mobile, why people moved to different places at different times.
Interesting. Now, was there, when Mobile was faced with the flu pandemic or even yellow fever, how did Mobile try to combat those things back then? I mean, did they have mask mandates? Do we know if they helped?
Well, we have I'm thinking about one photograph in particular that shows some soldiers, part of the famed Rainbow Division, coming home from World War I. And I think they're marching down Government Street in Mobile, and a lot of people in the crowd have on masks. And so you see there was kind of widely advised mask wearing. I remember my own grandfather, who lived in Virginia, talking about going to see the soldiers return from World War I and everyone having on a mask. So that worked. I think that's another great lesson from history. These social distancing, these sorts of things, they do work, and they're not totally unique. This is what historians are always saying. People say, this is so unprecedented. Mobilians have done this a number of times, and we're much better equipped than we have been before, but it's not totally unprecedented.
Do you have any artifacts or anything from the Spanish flu still around? I mean, I want to imagine most of it just got burned or destroyed out of fear, but do you have things that survived?
We have a lot of written evidence, right? So you get letters and journals and diaries. We get a lot of photographic evidence. Now, in terms of yellow fever, we actually have one of the most sort of striking artifacts in our collection is a child's coffin that would have been made in the 1870s or so. And they had developed a type of coffin. And, it's just this tiny little heartbreaking coffin. It has a glass top where you can look down and see the child, see the face of the deceased person in there. And it was made of metal, and it was made to be airtight because of fears of the virus spreading after the person was deceased. And so they kind of developed new coffin technology, and that's a really poignant reminder of really how deadly it was.
Yeah, and it's just sad. I mean, it's just...
It is. It's a gut-wrenching one, for sure.
Well, I want to talk to you about the museum itself, and we're going to do that right after we come back from a break. So we're going to go to a commercial for just a moment, pay a few bills, and we'll be right back with Meg Fowler from the History Museum of Mobile. And we are back with Meg Fowler from the History Museum of Mobile. I want to talk to you a little bit about the museum itself. I believe your museum building has a long and storied history. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the building was built in 1855. It was originally the City Hall. We actually have a very special distinction of being the oldest continuously operating City Hall in the country. And the way that we maintain that designation, now, of course, it's the History Museum, but once a year, the City Council comes and has a meeting here. So it is continuously operating as a City Hall. They'll do it in December. It's a lot of fun. Local choirs will come. It's a great tradition. The building was built as a southern market. And so this was kind of a European model where you would have, the stinky fish market and the government were all in the same building. And so kind of all of that come together, really the center of life and the heart of the downtown Mobile, and stayed the City Hall more or less until Government Plaza was built in the early 90s.
I'm not trying to get you with a gotcha one here, but this is just one that I'm curious about. How did Government Street become named Government Street? Do you know?
It was from the very beginning. It was the heart of city government. So you had some really old courthouses that were some of the original courthouses were there. You've got the City Hall right here adjacent to Government Street, and a lot of street names in Mobile change and evolve over time, but that one has stuck around.
Are there any other street names that have any particular significance that you're aware of, from a standpoint of Mobile history?
Well, a lot of things, I lived for 5 years in New Orleans. I grew up in Mobile, then lived for 5 years in New Orleans, and came back to Mobile. And I think one of the things that was so interesting is how many street names New Orleans and Mobile share, because there's a lot of shared colonial history. So, you have, and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast too, you've got Bienville and D'Iberville and all these kind of different names, kind of shared history.
Dauphin.
But that's exactly, this is where you really contact, all these different people, explorers, folks who, Church Street, you've got a couple churches on it.
Mm-hmm.
But you really start to see, like with Detente Square, how, for example, how these kind of names of people that settled Mobile, colonial folks, were honored through street names. And it's a large reason why we still know their name today.
Now, let's talk about your current exhibit.
So right now we have an exhibit called Ancient Rome. It has been extended all the way through Labor Day, so that's an exciting there's still time for people to come and see it. This exhibit was created in Italy, in Florence, Italy, and when it was first unveiled, it won the Italian president's gold medal for cultural innovation, because to create this exhibit, they actually went back for the first time to Roman blueprints, to Roman notes, and recreated these machines that had been lost to history for 2,000 years. And so you can see them only at the History Museum of Mobile. And they're really fascinating, all sorts of different technologies, machines that allowed the Roman Empire to expand, and then also provided water, created a peacetime empire as well.
So it's about ancient Rome and the Roman Empire as a whole, right?
Exactly. It's about how the ancient Romans, and it's a very kind of STEM-oriented, how does this technology work? What actually allowed them to expand the empire? One of the interesting things is that so many, even foot soldiers, had to be engineers, certainly kind of the centurions who were older, because you would get to a river, you would get to a walled city and say, okay, we've got to engineer a solution to get over this city wall, or to build a bridge over this body of water that they had never seen before. And so just coming up and really problem solving on the go, they were incredibly good, incredibly skilled at it. Part of why the Roman Empire got so big.
Like the army of engineers.
Exactly. But a really kind of widespread expectation.
Now, apart from the Rome exhibit, what other displays do you guys have up right now that people can come and see?
So we have our permanent, well, actually, just today we opened a new exhibit called The Trench Art of World War II. Trench art is a term that just means art created from the implements of war. So this is a World War II exhibit, and it's really fascinating. There's all sorts of shell casings and piece of artillery shells, all sorts of different things that have been carved in World War II by soldiers who were just excruciatingly bored, which is such an interesting thing. You have in war this kind of juxtaposition between people who are, the fear of battle, and also these stretches of boredom that ended up producing a lot of art. So kind of an unexpected art of war that you might not always kind of see, kind of a different side of World War II.
Well, that makes me ask another question. What are some of the most unique or treasured artifacts that the museum possesses? Is there anything you guys have that's just off the wall crazy?
I think everyone has their favorites. Every curator at the museum has their favorites. So we also have, those are what I'm telling you about are our temporary exhibits, but we also have permanent exhibits that start with the mound builders before colonial contact, goes through civil rights, and then some thematic exhibits of Mardi Gras and shipbuilding and recreation and different things like that. So within those permanent exhibits, there are some amazing things. I love a portrait of Detente that was painted by a Dutch master who was a pupil of Rembrandt, the famous Dutch master Rembrandt. There are all sorts of, we also have, now this isn't on permanent display, this is back in our collection. We have a mastodon bone that's 10,000 years old. Really some extraordinary things. And just such a breadth of fascinating objects. Unexpected things, always something new to discover.
So is there a particular exhibit or that you would personally like to see happen or come to the museum?
Oh yes, I think that we have secured my dream exhibit. Just last week, this is breaking news. And COVID permitting, we will open an exhibit in February of real Egyptian mummies.
Oh wow!
It's called Ancient Egypt and Eternal Life, with some real Egyptian mummies and also all of these different artifacts, 2,000 to 4,000 years old, that show the burial rituals, the tools that they would use in mummification. All authentic artifacts. There's some international travel involved in that too. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but it looks like everything's going to be a go to get that here in February.
That's crazy. You did not strike me as a mummy person.
Oh, everyone loves mummies. I think it really has just so captured the public's imagination for hundreds of years. So we're really excited to be able to bring that and just share that with Mobile. Really, you have to go a long way in America to see mummies, real mummies, and mummies unwrapped even. And so to be able to bring that to Mobile for about 4 months is special.
So let's talk about how people can come. And I know some people, people have, COVID concerns, so on and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys are doing to quell those concerns and the museum hours and day passes and all that good stuff.
So we are open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday. It's 9 to 5. Sunday, it's just in the afternoon, 1 to 5. We are doing all of the enhanced sanitation measures, wiping things down, asking people to maintain social distance. Of course, city, state ordinances, you have to wear a mask. And people have been really wonderful. I think at the museum, it's a wonderful air-conditioned place where you can come and really have some social distance. And it's a big museum, so there's room to spread out. Even when we have, so the first Sunday of each month, we're free. There's a small admissions charge during most days, but one Sunday a month, we are free on that first Sunday. And even then, we get big crowds then, but even then, we haven't had a problem with social distancing. And so it's a really good way to be able to keep some space and get out of the heat, see something other than the walls of your own house. Is there a website that people can go to check things out that we can put basically right here on the screen? Absolutely. HistoryMuseumofMobile.com is our website, and we also update Facebook quite regularly, History Museum of Mobile. Meg, thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Meg Fowler with the History Museum of Mobile. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching. That is our show for tonight. Special thanks to Meg Fowler with the History Museum of Mobile. Gianni, take us home.